Welcome once again to Kicking It Old School with Ryan Smith.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us again on Friday nights. We're here with Steven, and this time our guest is Brian from Brian's Man Cave. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So it's
live.
Canadian Day, right? Canadians are taking over today.
Well, it's that or another country, right? Take your pick. We're friendly.
That is true. Very true.
We're friendly. We give you all the good movie stars. It's we're generous like that.
So Brian, man,
So I'm trying to find our show here so I can have the chat up here.
man, it's right on Glenn's Retro Show. It's not too hard to find.
Yeah, here we go. Got it.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up on my screen now too, so I can see the chats.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I can see everybody's chat. Everybody's seems to be in a good mood. All right. Yeah, we're good.
Well, I gotta mention something here real quick. I know that everyone's in the chat here, only because if we go and take a look right now, let's see if I pull this up real quick. Right now, where did you go? Boom. New Wave Toys. If you want to get yourself the Space Ace or the Dragon's Lair, you've got literally 55 minutes left to order one of these.
Really? You're going to send everybody away from our show to go buy this?
Hey,
Come on.
these are great. So they have the Space Ace, they have the original, and they have the the modified one and Dragon's Lair.
Like as a bundle? Is that what it is?
Well, they're about 129 a piece. But if you see the Space Ace on the left-hand side, that's the original Cinematronics version, and then there was the Dragon's Lair modified cabinet, Space Ace conversion kit, right? And then they have the Dragon's Lair and the converted kit, one with the red striping. But you only got literally 55 minutes. So by the time my show's over today, Kicking Old School, me and Steven's show's over, that's it for these pre-orders. So not to send you all away, but,
Well, you just did. What the hell?
I might have. I might have. But you know what? New Wave Toys make some good stuff. They really do. Hey, look at Brian. He got a text in there. Check that out. Okay, I want to get this out of the way. So we'll bring it up periodically throughout the show. I'm going to get that out of here. Boom. Right now. Want to say hi to everyone in the chat and give a warm Kicking It Old School welcome to Brian from Brian's Man Cave. I've actually known Brian, which Steven didn't know. I've known Brian a number of years now. Quite a number of years now.
It's a small community, you know.
It is. It is.
I just got to know Brian a few months ago, a month and a half ago, roughly. So him and I are new friends. You and him are
we are old friends. I mean, Brian is definitely a good retro gamer. He loves Atari. He loves Intellivision. And I'm going to shut up for a second so Brian can tell us himself what he likes to play.
Okay, well, yeah, like Glenn was saying, I'm well, it's weird. I hate calling myself a retro gamer half the time because I don't really see it that way. Because these are the games that I grew up with. These are the games that I played, and these are the games I still play. So to me, it's just video games. But if I have to look at it, yeah, it's retro.
We're all retro.
I even have the shirt on that says "Kicking It Old School" with the Atari there.
Look at that.
Awesome.
I mean,
so I guess
look at that. We're,
no relation to the.
But you know what? We're not
getting
any kickbacks from that shirt company. Why am I not getting kickbacks?
Well, in their defense, they spell school properly.
Oh.
But yeah, so I grew up playing. When I was a little boy, I grew up playing on the Intellivision. That was our family's first console, first introduction to actual video gaming, outside of, say, going to a Chuck E. Cheese or an arcade or something like that. So yeah, the Intellivision was something that I really attached myself to. And after a few years, we ended up getting a Commodore 64 because my mother always thought that, it was good to expose us to technology because that's where the future was going. And she always thought, it's important that we kind of stay on top of this type of stuff.
Pretty awesome. She had that insight.
Yeah. Well, she herself became a computer operator and worked for several companies. She ended up working for IBM at some point.
Wow.
But yeah, so she always saw that there was an advantage to, getting into this type of stuff, even though it was expensive. Like back in the day, obviously, it was really expensive to get the Intellivision. A lot of people ended up getting an Atari mainly because they were cheaper. If you think about it, like the Atari was, maybe $100 something cheaper than the Intellivision at the time.
Yeah, I remember.
But that's what we got. So I just grew up on that, and of course, like every other kid, it got old enough that started to advance onto like the Nintendo. And I actually didn't get an Atari until probably around. Well, it was the Atari Junior. So when did that come out? 89, 90?
The Junior came out. I thought at 84 or 83. The Junior. It was that much later.
No, I don't think it came out that early.
I'm going to take a look. I'll look that up. I'm going to look that up now. Now I need to know.
The Junior came out around the time when Nintendo was really popular, and they were the alternative to a cheaper system where you can, buy video games.
1982.
82.
Yep, 1982.
They weren't filling up the landfills at that point yet.
Holy crap! But I remember getting one, and that's when I actually started playing Atari. But yeah, and then other than that, I pretty much just stuck to the classics. I bought a PlayStation long after the first release of it. Bought a PlayStation 2 again long after the first release of it. Most of the time, I just was playing on those systems. I was playing classic games, so it really didn't matter.
Intellivision lives.
Yeah, I had the Intellivision.
Atari Anthology. And...
Yeah, I had those, and even the reimagined games like the Frogger.
Oh yeah, Pitfall was one of them.
There's a bunch of them. Pong. There was a Pong game. I remember.
Was there?
Yeah, for the.
I remember the Pitfall one from Activision, Expedition, I think it was called, on PS2 and Xbox. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So the Intellivision was it because of the sports games you guys went with the Intellivision?
Actually, funny enough, boxing was one of the games that I played routinely with my friends. But I wasn't really a sports person myself when I was a kid. I didn't really get into sports. So outside of boxing, I didn't really play any of the sports titles. I played games like Lock and Chase, Burger Time, Donkey Kong Jr., Night Stalker, Venture. Those are the games that I routinely stuck to. And then some of the space games like Space Armada and, when I got the IntelliVoice, I loved playing Bomb Squad.
Space Spartans for me. I love Space Spartans.
Yeah, Space Spartan. My father actually came home with the IntelliVoice and 3 games, and I didn't even know what the heck it was when he brought it home. I'm like, what is this? He's just like, here you go. And I'm like, okay.
It's gonna talk.
Yeah. And I plugged it in. I'm like, what is going on? And then it's like talking. I'm like, whoa. But at the time though, that probably was when I already had my Commodore 64, and there was games like Impossible Mission and Ghostbusters, and
now he's talking my language right there.
Yeah, like those games talked already, so
no
it was
TI
cool.
99 here, Glenn.
It was cool seeing it talking on the Intellivision, but to me it wasn't like mind blowing. But yeah.
So what do you think about the new Intellivision AMICO? What are your thoughts on it, Brian?
Okay, well, the AMICO. So interesting story was before it was even called AMICO, before there was even a full-on concept. Somebody reached out to me. I don't remember who it was, but somebody reached out to me saying that Tommy Tallarico is going to be making a new Intellivision. And I thought, okay, first of all, who the heck is Tommy Tallarico? I didn't know who he was. And what are you talking about? And so they did he sent me a link to his thing, and I ended up watching the very first announcement on Facebook. It was a live feed on Facebook where they actually were talking about, we're bringing the Intellivision back. And I was obviously all over this. I was like, no way. And so I was through the chats, and I was chatting with them. And eventually I communicated with Tommy Tallarico, and I said, I want to do a live, I would like to do a live chat with you to talk about this. And he's like, sure, let's do it. And so I was the first YouTuber to have Tommy Tallarico on talking about this new Intellivision. And so, fast forward to when they actually created the name and said, this is called the AMICO and stuff. So I was kind of on board with it from day one. I liked the concept. I liked the idea. I put myself down for the Founders Edition. I put the $100 in. I'm like, hell, I'll try it. This sounds cool. And from that point on, I've kind of just sat dormant. I'm not really going to continue making videos on it because there isn't a whole lot to really say right now. It's not out yet. They've been working on it. I know a lot of YouTubers who are doing videos on it and constantly, getting clicks and all that stuff, just making up, whatever their opinions and stuff.
Yeah, that's not cool. Wait till it comes out, like...
That's it. Yeah. Like I don't want to just sit there making up stuff just for content. So I just decided to
Well, what'd you think of the unboxing video that happened this week?
That I liked. I liked seeing that. I liked that they did that because they kind of went through this quiet period where they from when the point when Tommy Tallarico kind of stepped down as CEO, and now he's like, what is he? He's like the chief creative person or whatever. They decided to go silent, and that's when all the YouTubers went nuts.
Oh yeah.
Because not only did they go silent, but the guy who kind of took over as CEO has some kind of connection to the Calico Chameleon, which I know, Stephen, you're familiar with.
Oh yeah. We won't go there on this episode, maybe a future episode.
Yeah, so obviously that created a lot of controversy. And so they just kind of went silent. And then all we've been seeing lately is, Intellivision AMICO is dead. The AMICO is dead. They're going to sell the company, this and this and that. And I'm like, no, like there's no evidence of that. That's speculation. And then they come out with this video. So again,
I think it was like almost like a perfect storm of events that created that negative buzz. When Tommy stepped down, there was no communication, and they probably felt the heat from the fans or whoever. And I think they probably went, oh, we got to do something. And this video came out to reinstill confidence probably in everyone. That's what I think why they did all that. But yeah. So we
It's
know
a nice
it's real.
box. I like the box.
Yeah, it's a nice box.
Yeah, and again, people are picking this video apart. They're like, "Oh, it's not authentic." It was, obviously they put this together to do the unboxing, right? This isn't an actual off-the-shelf, ready-to-go AMICO. They did this
prototype box.
Yeah. It's not an AMICO that's ready for sale. It's like a prototype or whatever. But I mean, it is an unboxing, and so many people jumped on it. They ripped the video apart. They said it was pointless. They said there was no point to this video, and there's jump cuts and all this speculation. And I'm like, they're showing you how it's going to look. This is the first time we got to see how the box is going to look, and that's cool because for the longest time we always just had to imagine what it was going to look like.
I will tell you though, I may pick up an AMICO. I do find it interesting. I do think the controllers are interesting, much more than the Atari VCS. The Atari VCS to me was a cash grab ripoff product, way overpriced for what you got. This does have me a little intrigued, and even if it doesn't work or make mass market appeal, I do think that hackers will probably start making use of this machine a little bit. So I'm intrigued by it, but I have not backed it yet. I'm kind of still waiting to see what kind of happens, but I'm at least more opt to purchase this than I did than the Atari one. Yes.
Well, you and I, Glenn, we were talking about this sort of thing a few episodes back about, and basically what I said is look, I want to see it on a store shelf and then I'll go buy it.
Right.
Like or if it's going to be in a Walmart or whichever.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people, like Brian was saying, people are pulling it apart for like the processor and stuff like that. They are trying to keep the price down. It's not like a huge company like a Microsoft or something that has billions of dollars back in it. It's a company that's small, and I don't have a problem with the processor if the games are fun. Then the Wii, I still love playing the Wii, and it is not a powerhouse machine at all. Heck, I like playing my Atari, my original Odyssey. Doesn't even have a processor in it in the Odyssey. So as long as the games are fun, that's the important thing. So
it's about the games in the end of every console. It's about the games.
Right. And they do have some good properties, right, Brian? They have some good games in there. Like we're talking Space Spartans, Astro Smash, Space Hawk, good games.
Well, the other thing that makes it unique is the controller. Like that's the big thing. Just like I know that they were talking about how the big thing about the Wii was the controller, was the motion controls and all that stuff. So the Intellivision AMICO is going to have the same motion style controller, but it also has like a unique feature where it's got a screen on it. Plus it has that disc, which mimics the original disc.
They kept the worst part of that controller, was that disc.
Well, no, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, if you didn't grow up using it, it could be foreign to you if you're used to playing on a standard, like what are these things over here?
I grew up with that thing, man.
The Atari joystick.
I gotta say, I grew up with the Intellivision. I grew up in them all. That disc was the disc of death. I hated that disc. Hated it. But I did mod it though. I was able to, they sold joysticks, so you could take it apart, put a joystick in. That made it better. But the actual disc, I hated it.
But it gave you the option of the full, going all the way around and stuff like that. So depending on the game you're playing, and that this is the thing with the Intellivision. One of the problems with the platform style games is that the disc isn't always the greatest for those. Like when you're playing Donkey Kong, for instance, Donkey Kong is right, left, up, down.
Right.
And so when you're using a disc, it can be a little bit weird. But for certain games, the disc is amazing. Kind of like when you're playing on the Atari, and certain games are better with the paddle controllers. If you're playing Kaboom or something, you'd rather have that paddle controller than the straight.
Well, I will probably say that the new disc probably uses a little better technology than the 2-layer of the thin membrane that they used. So it might be better.
I think the disc for the AMICO, it's a more like a D-pad feel, and it has the rotation option. So I think
kind of like a mini steering wheel. Is that what it is?
Like if you take apart the Intellivision controller, all you're going to find underneath there is a little spring, and that's about it. The thing turns and it's got a spring underneath. I think the Intellivision AMICO has much more hardware built-in feel to it. It's not just sitting on a spring. So there's a lot more to it. It's more like a dial than it is of a,
I wonder if you can use it as a steering wheel to driving games or something, to turn
well,
left
probably.
and right.
Well, the
I would
auto
say-
kinda
was
cool
it
if it
auto
did.
racing that they had in television back then? Beautiful driving game with that disc. It drove me insane. So if they improve that, I mean, like I said, I'm not saying it's bad yet, 'cause I haven't tried it yet, but I could definitely say that the original Intellivision controller, like the ColecoVision, Steve and I talked about that. The original ColecoVision controller was not the best either. I mean, it did the job, but it was definitely not the best one out
They
there.
all had phone pads on these controllers from Intellivision. They saw ET and everybody needed the phone home, I guess, or something. I don't know. It's
well,
like,
yeah, the ColecoVision, like even me being an Intellivision fan, growing up with it, I had a hard time always with the ColecoVision. I still do. I find that the controller is a lot harder
It's
for
crap.
me to use.
it's crap.
It's bulkier. it's heavier. The buttons are harder to push. Like I don't know.
The ergonomics
I can never-
of those controllers were not the best. The side buttons on the 5200, the Intellivision, ColecoVision, to me was like the worst part. You're holding it like this or like this, and those side buttons, you got fatigued fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Early developments of carpal tunnel was developed back then. That's what I think. That's my theory.
Well, they did have, you had, was it the BlackBerry finger they were calling it, and then they had the Atari thumb, back in the day. That was the thing that they called
the
it.
Atari thumb.
But so again, I'm open to it. I got to see what actually happens if it makes it to market and such. There's been a lot of these
I'm
machines.
cautiously
There's
optimistic.
machines they've talked about that never made it to market, like the Chameleon never made it to market, and there's been other ones, but the Chameleon's probably the most infamous of them all that didn't make it. So I don't hope that's the same fate for the AMICO, because I do believe that the guys behind it are really trying to make a good product. I really do think they are trying to do that.
I hear that some of the people try to compare it to the Chameleon and also try to compare it to the Ouya.
Ouya. Well,
they call it
the Ouya did
call
make
it
it
the
to
Ouya
market.
Tuya.
It did. The Ouya did make it to market, and again, it probably wasn't put together the best way, but I don't think it was a bad product. I mean, it was okay. I didn't think it was horrible. The Chameleon
It's the most
was
hacked
just
thing right now.
yes.
People use it for emulation, and I think somebody even made their own store or something.
Okay, hold the presses. Hold the presses. Wagner's Tech Talk has gone insane here. He did a super chat, and Wagner, buddy, you don't have to send a super chat, but thank you so much for it. He still has a reservation for an AMICO. I'd love to see it actually ship. Slightly smiling face. I think it will ship. I think it will. I don't think it's gonna not go. I know, like Metal Pixel and other people like that. It's done. I'm not quite sure about that yet, but I just didn't feel confident enough to back it. Anyway, I just didn't.
I'm cautiously optimistic, like I said. I want it. I want to like it. I want it to come out, but I ain't going to be throwing money ahead of time on it. Sorry,
But Wagner, buddy, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. That'll go to my lighting bill to keep the lights on for a few more minutes.
Keep the lights and the
Yourself a
heat
good
on.
camera.
Now, in addition to Brian being very big with Atari and Intellivision, there's something else that he's really into. I can't quite put my finger on what he really enjoys. You guys have
Is that a Ford Taurus?
A Ford Taurus.
So a good buddy Brian actually does own a DeLorean. Have you always owned it, or did you pick it up? Tell us a story about your DeLorean.
Okay. Yeah. Well, going back, obviously, when I was a kid, I watched Back to the Future regularly. It was one of those movies. I think I've watched it so much I pretty much know all the lines to it. And I always loved the car. I always loved the Back to the Future car. And even at that time, I didn't even know what kind of car it was, but I still loved the car. And I think a lot of people are like that, who are into watch Back to the Future and all that. They love the car. And so later on, when I was older, I learned what kind of car it was, and I thought, if I ever get money, if I ever get the opportunity, that's the car I'm going to buy. And so I ended up getting an inheritance. My father passed away.
Very sorry.
Yeah, he didn't didn't take care of himself. Let's just say that he kind of let himself go. But yeah, when he passed away, I got an inheritance, and the way I looked at it was like, I always knew my father was the kind of guy that he always had dreams. He always wanted to buy certain things. He kept telling us, oh, you know, one day I want to buy a boat. And it was just like this big thing for him. Like, oh, I'm going to buy a boat. We're going to, you know, go in the water and go on. So he always had these dreams to buy something like special. And so when I got the inheritance money, I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And I thought, I'm going to use this money to buy something I always wished I had. And that was a DeLorean. So
good for you.
I started looking into it. I'm like, you know, is it, first of all, can I buy one? Second of all, if I do buy one, can I fix it? That was a concern, because I'm like, who knows how to fix these things?
And to be clear, you're not a mechanic, right?
No, hell no.
Okay, just checking.
No, I don't do even the basic of things to cars. So yeah, so I ended up, my uncle is a mechanic. And so I contacted him one day and I said, hey, I'm looking into buying a DeLorean. Do you think you could fix one if I bought it? And he's like, probably, yeah. And so I actually found one on, there was some website at the time.
I'm assuming in Canada there's not a lot of DeLoreans.
There's some.
There's a small amount of them. But this was back in 2001, I believe it was, when I was doing this. And I ended up, there was a website exclusively just for DeLorean sales. And so I found one. Like, I was looking at, obviously, price. What can I afford? And I wanted to find one that was automatic, that was manual, or sorry, automatic, not manual, because I didn't know how to drive automatic.
Manual.
I'm screwing it up. I didn't know how to drive
can't drive an automatic. Oh my God.
No, I didn't know how to drive manual. So I was trying to find one, but this one popped up, and the price was too good. It was just too good. The guy dropped it substantially, and I contacted him, and I'm like, you know, what's with the price drop? And he's like, I need to move this now. I'm moving. I don't have space for it. I got to get rid of it. And so I'm like, okay. Problem is, I'm in Canada, near Toronto. This guy's in Chicago.
Wow.
So I called my uncle, and I'm like,
road trip.
Yeah, he had a tow. He had a flatbed tow truck, and I'm like, would you be willing to drive me to Chicago, take a look at this car, and if I want it, I'm going to buy it and then drive it, you know, tow it back? And he's like, sure. And so
nice uncle.
That's what happened. Well, I paid him for it. I didn't expect him to do it for free. So I actually paid him by giving him the car I currently had.
No.
So,
well, was it DeLorean in working condition when you went there? Was it drivable? Was it?
Yep. The guy was working on it. He was doing his own work to it. So he was kind of trying to be cheap and, you know, try and use aftermarket parts. So when we got there, when we got to Chicago, I think it took us like 6-7 hours or something crazy like that. We literally got up at 5 a.m. and just drove straight through Windsor. We stayed in a hotel and stuff, but yeah. So when we got to his house, he showed it to us in his garage, and we took it for a spin around the block. I couldn't drive it because I couldn't drive manual. My uncle had to like drive it for me. But he's like, yeah, everything seems fine and looks good. So we put the transaction through, and I brought it home, and he had to fix it up, obviously, to make it legal for driving in Canada. There was some things that were not right. And then, I ended up, it was my primary car because I sold him my car to buy this. And so I'm like, I'm buying this car. I'm driving it. I'm not just going to shove it in the garage. I want to drive this
And
thing.
how was it?
And it was good. It was good for the first few years. I didn't have a lot of issues. I drove it to school. I drove it to college. Every day. I drove it in the winter. I drove the hell out of it.
Well, I assume the salt wouldn't affect that car.
Not the stainless steel, but the frame. The frame is regular. Yeah. So I did do a number on the frame, unfortunately, but and a lot of the under stuff. But
Because I think it's fiberglass all underneath, if I'm not mistaken. Like
yeah,
underneath
it's
where
like
the floorboards are, kind of thing.
plastic and fiberglass, and then it's all the stainless steel paneling, and then it's got the steel frame.
Hold on one quick second. We
one of
have
my friends
another
got one
super
too.
chat from Hobby Hands. He's saying the aftermarket time travel parts are terrible. You always end up in the wrong century. Ooh, has that happened to you, Brian?
No, I didn't actually convert mine to a time machine.
What? Why not?
But I know a guy who did.
Thank you, Hobby
Apparently,
Hands.
that car stock doesn't do 88 miles an hour.
Well, the
Apparently.
interesting thing is like the guy who started the what originally was called the Ontario DeLorean Owners Club. He saw me driving my car and he pulled up beside me and he's like, "Where did you get this car? Like, where did you get this?" And I had to like give him the whole spiel. I'm like, I bought it in this, and he's like, "Oh, I want to." He's like, "I want to buy a DeLorean so bad." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You know how many people say that and they never do. And one day I was at work and he came into my work. I was working at a Wendy's. He came into my work. He's like, "Hey, do you remember me?" I'm like, and he's like, the guy that pulled you over and said he wanted a DeLorean. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you. Okay, yeah." He's like, "Come and look out in the parking lot." Literally, he had his parked behind mine. So it looked like a mirror kind of image. And I'm like, "Holy crap, you actually did it." And so he started the DeLorean Club. And then he ended up buying a second DeLorean, which he turned into the Back to the Future car.
Oh, wow, he did.
And it,
Wow.
and it looked really good. This guy, he did the research. He actually went down, I think Florida or somewhere he went to, and actually spoke to the guy who built the original from the movie.
Wow.
And
Universal
he asked
Studios in California, probably.
Yeah, and he talked to him. He's like, "How did you do this? How did you do?" And the guy gave him all the tips, and he ended up
Wow.
building it very close to the movie, which is really
That must
cool.
have cost a small chunk of change.
Oh yeah, and then so he actually, I think he's still doing it now. Or he was for a while, anyways. He was renting it out to places who wanted to use it for promotions or whatever. And so that's So I got to know him, and then later on, I got to know the guy who runs an auto shop, a garage called Wells Auto, and they exclusively fix DeLoreans. That's all they do. And so this guy, huh?
That's what you want.
Oh yeah. This guy, so he's located about 30 minutes away from where I live, and his whole thing is just DeLoreans. That's all he does. He's the only DeLorean mechanic in Canada, which is amazing. Like, people in America bring their cars to him. And he told me, like, when he came to see me, like, I called him up and I was like, "Oh, I got word that you fixed DeLoreans." He came down to look at my car and he noticed my college, those little tags you put in your car for parking. He noticed that and he's like, "Oh my God, we were in college together." He was in the same course as me in the same year.
Wow.
And he remembers seeing my car going into the college. So I was like, wow, small world. So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
As Juan said a second ago, I brought it up here. Do you know they are planning on bringing back the DeLorean as an electric vehicle? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that's been going on for years. It's kind of like people are like, "Oh yeah, we'll believe it when we see it," kind of thing. This one looks a little bit more promising because they actually built a website. They have products and stuff. But the DeLorean community has been hearing this for since 2016.
Now, since you've had one, you've been driving for a while. I heard that as for a sporty looking car, the engine and performance really was not that great.
No.
Hence my comment about the 88 miles an hour.
No. My speedometer doesn't even go up to 88 miles per hour. I think it goes up to about 86.
Really?
Yeah. Or 85.
They just don't
86.
want you going back.
That's exactly what.
Yeah. Well, they made so there is a little bit of history with my car as well. It was like the third or second last one off the assembly line. So the story I've heard is the last one that came off the assembly line never went for sale. The plant owner or whoever kept it for themselves. So mine was like the second or third last one off the assembly line. So that's like an 82, December of 82. And so there's stuff on my car that's not on any other DeLoreans, because they started creating new concepts and changing things around just before the company went under. And it's also known as a manager's car, because at the time they had to let go of all their staff. And this was in Ireland, right? Like the car was made in Ireland, Dublin, I believe. So they let all the staff go. And so the only people left were managers, and they were the ones building the cars at that point. So I found out from this guy from Wells Auto, Justin, that's what I have is a
Cool.
manager's car. And so there's like a lot of stuff on there that's different. And so, so it's got a little bit of history there. It's being like one of the last cars off the assembly line before the company kind of, it kind of got
Before
sold
John
off.
DeLorean got busted for
Cocaine.
cocaine use or sell or whatever.
And then
Which
it
he denies.
became the company kind of stuck around under in Texas. There was like one in Texas and there was one in Florida that still had the parts. They had enough parts left over to make another 10,000 cars.
Wow, really?
So, yeah, so there's a lot of parts, and
you can buy one today, Glenn.
Well, that's what there was a post a second ago here. Where was it? Saying there was here it is. I think Curtis here in Texas. He was saying that there's a warehouse full of parts still.
Yeah, you go on YouTube.
Texas,
There's a whole documentary. They show the place and everything and all the mods you can do to it that are pro DeLorean Texas mods, I guess, or whatever. And
Yeah,
it's
so
on
there
YouTube.
was two. There was one in Texas and one in Florida, and I believe the one in Texas bought out the company in Florida, and so now Texas has all the stock, and that's where I was always buying my parts. I was always having issues, like I had to replace all the struts, the struts to keep the doors up, because after a while the doors will start to sag down. So you got to buy gas struts.
The gas, they blow out after a while.
Yeah.
My buddy had the same problem with his. The gull wing doors just sagged down.
A hatchback thing that would happen after a number of years.
Yeah, if you have a trunk that opens up with the gas, yeah. So I had to replace those. I've had to replace the alternator. Actually, my uncle he kept sending my alternator out to be repaired because the alternator kept failing on me at one point. And so there's many times where I got stuck on the road because the alternator would die, and I would just everything would shut down, and I'd be sitting there going,
just like in Back to the Future. We was trying to go back, right? It was the alternator.
That's right on that starting line.
Yeah.
No, that was the start.
You have to hit your forehead right on the steering wheel.
Yeah, so he kept sending it out to be repaired, and then finally he looked for a comparative part of a GM alternator, and he kind of retrofitted a GM alternator into the car. So right now it's got that.
And has it been better since?
Oh yeah, after that, no problems. I never had any problems. But I heard when I was talking to the guys in Texas, they said, well, there shouldn't be any problem with the alternator, and they're usually pretty good. So I don't know. Maybe it was whoever was trying to fix it didn't know what they were doing.
No surprises. But overall, are you really happy you did tracked one down and you purchased it? Is it something that you feel like it was a worthy purchase?
Definitely, because I knew that once I got older, once I got married, once I had kids, forget it. you try and tell your wife you're going to go and buy a 40-year-old sports car and see what happens. So I at the time I wasn't married. I was single. Or I had a girlfriend, but I wasn't engaged or anything. And so why not? I jumped into it, and I still have the car today. It's actually the unfortunate thing is the house I live in, we only have room for 2 cars. So there's my primary car, which is a Saturn, and my wife's car.
Oh, you like going for cars that don't rust on the outside. You got the DeLorean, which is stainless steel, and you got a Saturn, which is the fiberglass.
Saturn's also silver too. Looks like. But so we have room for 2 cars. So I had to. I took my car in quite a while ago to get it fixed to the to Wells Auto, and you know, he did a lot of work. He restored a lot of parts. He restored a lot of the engine parts. He said there was a lot of rust, probably from me driving it in the snow. So he's like, I've never seen so much rust. But so he's got it. He got it up to about you know, almost ready to drive. There's an idle speed problem. So if you're driving it and you go into like first gear, it'll start to like rev a little bit slower, and then eventually it'll quit on you. So it's
Just
not
like
very
in the
safe.
movie. So that's kind of cool. You know, it's
Yeah.
So
It's movie accurate.
so I take my hat off for you and your DeLorean. But we want to talk about something else here as well. We don't run out of time because Super Game Room Dudes goes on at 9 p.m. So we want to cut. But Steven, what else are we going to talk about tonight?
Halo TV show.
Halo TV show. What do people think
This is
about
a bit
that?
more of a bump in the years than, you know, the 80s of DeLorean and all that, but that aired yesterday on Paramount Plus. I don't know if we get that up here in Canada. I basically watched it alternatively. I won't say that to incriminate myself, but basically I watched it by whatever means possible. But basically, yeah, it was good. So if you're a Halo fan, it predates. It doesn't have anything to do with the games at all.
Right.
So if you're a bit of a Halo fan, check it out for sure, because not to spoil anything, but you get to see Master Chief's face because they needed to attach a person to relate to the character versus just in the games you never see him take off his helmet ever.
Right.
You know, so it's on Crave TV. There you go, Grumpy Driver. So catch it there. So essentially, I enjoyed the first episode. That's all that's released out there yet. And like I said, if you like the Halo universe, but even if you don't, it's approachable. It's not just like, hey, you didn't play the game, so you have no idea what the hell's going on. It's not like that at all.
Real quick, we got another super chat from Paul Bearers. Do you think there's a market for re-release of popular 80s consoles in either their authentic form factor, controls, carts, etc.? If so, what one would you think be successful?
You mean like the minis?
I think just talk about,
or
we'll,
just
we'll
a
pause.
complete
We'll
full
come back
release.
to this in 1 second. We'll go back out of this. Let me get that out of here. Blink, pull it out. I think he's asking just about consoles as a whole, whether anything.
Bringing back physical media, essentially, with the actual cartridges.
As they were.
Yeah.
As they were.
And like I put in the chat there, we do have the Retron 77, which was a good attempt at that, of trying to bring back that console feel where you can actually plug in a
real cartridge
and plug in a controller and play. And I don't know what happened with that. It just kind of came out and then that was it. I would love to see that happen with other systems, though. Like I totally could see like a 5200 or 7800 or even a Coleco. Well, there's the Coleco. What is it? The collector.
They have the Phoenix, which is
the
Phoenix console.
Oh yeah, the Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah.
So
which does the
for
same.
me personally, I am always been a thing of physical media. I don't buy into this digital download stuff where they shut down a server in a couple of years and you're SOL. So I mean, that's just for me.
Oh, that burns
me. And that's why I don't buy any of the newest systems. I don't buy the new systems. I do have an Xbox 360. I got it from my son, which of course he didn't play. Steven actually sent me an original Xbox that was modded, which is really, really cool. But I just don't buy into these games that you buy and then a couple years later they shut down the servers. And unless but now there has been times where people have taken the code and made servers, right? So they can still play like some of these older games. I know that they've done that. And I think, Steve, you were playing one game. Wasn't it one that, like, I don't know if it was Worlds of War, I don't know, some game that you were playing that they shoved the servers down.
World of Warcraft, they had these way back type servers that were not terribly legal, but they were free. You didn't pay anything. So basically, yeah, my video locked up.
That's good. But they kept those, but they are keeping that game alive. You can still play it again.
Blizzard put out World of Warcraft Classic, which you can go back and play the original World of Warcraft as it was back originally, and I think Burning Crusade, which is the second expansion, that they released that. But yeah, you go back but what burns me is companies like Nintendo going, yep, we just shut off these servers. So if you bought something, too bad. I think you can still grab your old stuff, but to buy anything new, forget it. They yank it out. But I think if you bought Mario, whatever on your Wii,
Right.
I think you could still go retrieve it, but you can't. The
Buy
store
anything new.
is not there.
Well, you can't buy
nothing
anything new, and that's what gets me. Like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, the companies aren't going anywhere, right? There's no reason to really shut those servers down, other than they want to push you to the new console, right? Like
Yeah, I
Apple
think
does
they're
with their stuff.
alienating
Apple
people
does that
doing
all the time. They build in obsolescence. There's nothing wrong with the CPU, nothing wrong with the memory. However, nope, you can't run it because iOS, blah blah blah. Just we're not gonna let you run it. So that irks me, and you can't really do that to a classic console. You know, it's a cartridge, you pop it in, and you go. There's a limitation.
You buy the game, you have the game forever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Until either it dies or the console dies, and I'd like to take those chances. Personally, that's why we like this channel, and we got Brian on the show. But to segue a little bit, I know Brian has been programming games for the Intellivision.
Actually, that's right. I forgot to bring that up. He does, doesn't he?
So here's your time to shine and promote your stuff.
You were making Custer's Revenge for the Intellivision, is that right?
No. So I have a background in programming, not a big one. I mean, it was just like more of a hobby for me. I started when I was a kid. When I had my Commodore 64, I used to tinker with programming. And then I took a class in high school, basic programming, and so I kind of always had the knack for it. And then during college, I started programming in Flash. What was it, Adobe Flash or whatever, and Macromedia Director. Yeah, Director. So I started doing, at that time I was making classic games in Director. I made Frogger, I made Donkey Kong, and I was just having a blast. And then I kind of hung it up because there was no other things for me to program on. And I was following the groups on Intellivision on Facebook. There's Intellivision Invasion and all that.
Right.
So I saw a book. Well, actually, I was going to start trying to program for the Atari 2600. And then I saw there was a book for programming on the Intellivision. I'm like, oh, I got to look into that. And so I bought the book. I actually contacted the guy that wrote the book, who created the software for it. And I asked him, what are the chances that I might be able to figure this stuff out? And I told him I understand QBasic and GBasic. And he's like, well, if you understand that, then you'll be good. So I took a crack at it. And it was really a combination of communicating with him, communicating with the forums on Atari Age. If you go to Atari Age forums, there's a whole thing on programming for Atari, for Coleco, for everything, Nintendo. And there's an Intellivision programming. So I joined that forum. And, they're very helpful guys there that are willing to help you with your code and everything. And yeah, so I just started. And the first game that I officially worked on was Keystone Cops, which is obviously Keystone Capers for the Atari 2600. I decided to give it a different name. And so, yeah, I ended up programming it and getting a lot of help from people, and I got it working. And eventually this guy Rev from Intellivision Revolution contacted me, saying a bunch of people were recommending that he contact me, saying that I have some games that I might be available. So I'm like, oh, sure. And so, yeah, we got into that. We got into a discussion, and so Keystone Cops is going to be released in
about
a month.
That is awesome. On a physical cartridge, right?
On a physical cartridge. It's got a manual. It's going to have a box. It's going to have the little inserts for your controller. So
Glenn's drooling there.
I am.
You see it on the camera. He's got to wipe his face a little bit. He's drooling. He's drooling.
Yeah. So
that's great.
That's
awesome.
I tried to keep it as close to the original as I could. I know that the thing is that a lot of the modern Intellivision programmers today want to make things extra better, more flashier, more prettier, more whatever, add more stuff to it. But this one, I just kept it pretty much like as if this game came out for the Intellivision back in the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wanted it to be, I kept the look and feel very close to the original. I didn't add in any kind of special stuff to it. But I do have a bunch of other games on the go. So there's going to be, I made a fast food game, if you've ever played that on the Atari 2600. So I made one called, I made one called Fast Food Plus. It's essentially a mouth eating on the screen, and then food's flying by, and you have to eat the food and then avoid these
Purple pickles.
So I made purple pickles. So I made a version of that game, and I actually created multiple levels for it and made my own thing out of it. Then I made a game called Traffic Jam.
I've been in Traffic Jam.
Rush Hour, the board game. Yeah, we all have experiences. But there's a board game called Rush Hour where you have like a plastic board, like a square. You put all these little cars in there, and it's like a puzzle. And you have to get your little red car, out of the puzzle. So you have to move things around. So, I made a game based on that. So it's got 40 different puzzles. So that game's all ready to go. And I got another game that I worked on. That's a Commodore 64 game that I loved called Rags to Riches. So that game's pretty much done. So yeah, I've been just going crazy. And now I'm working on, if you've ever played the board game Stratego, where it's like looks like a chess set almost. So I'm working on that, and this is my first attempt at an AI player. So I'm really trying to figure out the logic, but I'm having a hell of a lot of fun.
Next thing you know, Brian will be buying his "Don't You Leave Us All."
Yeah.
Go back to 1980 and start selling these for new. Back in the day. So Brian, tell us a little bit also just about your channel as a whole. We only got about 9 minutes left for the next show goes on, which is the Super Game Room Dudes. So tell us a bit about your channel so people can subscribe, go over to your channel and hit you up.
Well, my channel is pretty much anything retro. I wanted to not just focus only on video games. So I ended up saying, okay, I'm going to talk about movies. I'm going to talk about toys. Pretty much everything that I grew up with is what I'm going to talk about. So, in the earlier days when I first started the channel, I think my channel's like 6 years now going. I did a lot of toy stuff. So I was talking about Transformer toys that I played with and G.I. Joes and things like that. So that was the primary. And then I was talking also about the retro gaming and television, Commodore, Coleco, all that stuff. And then every once in a while I threw in a movie review. And then I also was doing live stuff. So I ended up doing live chats. My first live chat was with a pop singer named Sonia.
I remember that one.
Yeah, if you watch my intro, you'll see her in the intro. That was my very.
About that. I was like, "Who's that girl that's on your intro video?"
That was my very first live chat ever. So wow. It was kind of scary because I didn't know what I was doing. But and then I ended up talking to a lot of YouTubers. I think I had Glenn on. Didn't I have you on us?
Yeah. Everyone forgets I was on your show, but yeah, I was on there.
Yeah.
You don't have Glenn in the intro. Girl, but you don't have Glenn. I'm joking.
And then I started doing just regular live streaming where I was just myself playing video games and just doing chats. So it's kind of a show that I kind of experiment with, and I do a lot of different things. I don't want to just be the repetitive only this kind of thing. And I like to keep things positive. Like I don't do any videos where I slam anybody or.
That's why we don't make.
That's why we don't about your channel.
That's bad. You have to slam people. That's how you make it.
I like about your channel. Yeah, that's what I had the conversation with Brian. I said, that's the reason why I like your channel. You're not up there just hitting, slamming on the AMICO news or whatever. Just you're keeping it upbeat and positive, and that's awesome. What I mean?
That's the thing. I just want to talk about stuff that I like and stuff that relates to, things that I've grew up with. And I just find that you run into a lot of people who have the same interests and you can have a lot of great conversations. If you're only looking for views, it's the retro gaming scene is very difficult to get views and to get subscribers and stuff. I actually have a second channel that I created about a year ago. Focus on my other passion of card games, trading card games. And that one, because of the demographic and the content, it went over 1,000 subscribers like really fast, and it has a lot of views. So that one makes a lot more views and everything. But I find that with Brian's Man Cave, even though it doesn't bring in the views, it's still my passion, and I still want to talk about what I want to talk about. So if it's going to be me talking about my DeLoreans, which was my first show, if you actually go back to the very first show,
No pun intended.
If you go back to the very first show, I talked about my DeLorean collection, all my model DeLorean cars and stuff. So it's just whatever comes to mind. That's what I'm going to talk about.
That's awesome. I got a couple DeLoreans up there. I don't have a big one like yours, but I have little tiny ones that I play with.
Yeah, I got these. I got this one actually sitting right here. It's in the camera.
Hot Wheels.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
got a
that's
bunch.
cool.
Got a bunch of these. This one is the one with the black stripe across.
I'm really surprised no one made a drone DeLorean. Or maybe they did, and I didn't know about it.
Brian's like, wait a minute, got one here.
And you know what's cool? This just actually happened to me, but I got this magazine here. When it was around the time when I decided to get my car back on the road, and I needed to get car insurance for it. So I learned about this company called Haggerty, which does classic cars. And so I'd be like, okay, contacted them, signed up. They said, okay, we're going to also send you a magazine and stuff like that. The very first magazine I got.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
It's like almost like it was meant to be. I'm like,
wow,
no way.
That's crazy.
It was like a whole magazine on gull wings, and they had the DeLorean right there. I was like, that is cool. It's not totally by chance, but that is cool.
So real quick, Mark asked a question, what I thought about the AMICO unboxing. I'm still intrigued. I still want to see it. Someone to actually have it. I may buy one, but I'm not going to buy it until I know it's actually, something you can purchase. Right now, it's still vaporware, technically. I mean, AMICO has it, but no one else has seen it outside of the AMICO facility. So I'm going
to say something that everybody's going to hate me for. Show me the money.
Show me the AMICO.
Show me the money.
Well, there was some YouTubers who got the chance to go and actually physically play one, but
I know Brett Weiss
Steven had a chance to play
sure.
the Coleco Chameleon, but we know how that went.
That didn't turn out well. If you like the Super Nintendo Junior / Mini or whatever, but yeah.
All right, we're down to our last 2 minutes, Brian. So I want to tell everyone again, at 9 o'clock, Super Game Room Dudes goes on here, and I'll actually be on that show, so I have to hop over there myself after this show ends. But Brian, is there anything else you want to tell your fans, the community? This is your chance, man. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Well, I got a lot of stuff on the go, and if you're into Intellivision, hopefully you can pick up some of my games. I'm so excited about that.
We'll be on Atari Age. Can you get on Atari Age?
So far, Intellivision Revolution.
Okay.
So if you go on that website, Intellivision Revolution, they've already got a little part up there about purchasing Keystone Cops. And so hopefully I can get a lot more going. And I'm just going to have a lot of fun with this because, it's a small thing, but it's cool.
Cool. Hey, don't forget about the poll, Glenn, what it's at. We didn't
the poll. So I did do a poll on the AMICO. So do you still want an AMICO? 26% are a yes, but 74% are a no for the AMICO.
51 votes. That's crazy.
Wow.
51 votes. Well, the public has spoken.
Keep in mind, though, that the AMICO demographic that they're targeting is not us. So
yeah,
it's more like the Wii. It's more like the Wii people. The grandmas, grandpas just pick up and simple games. And I agree. And I'm getting that. Mostly not because I'm getting a little more gray. So I'm getting up there. So the AMICO is something I would probably like to play. Quick, simple games, but I want to see it.
It's going to be a family thing for sure.
So that's the whole point. Yeah.
Well. Brian, I want to thank you again for joining, and Stephen, once again, we'll be here next Friday at 8 p.m. Don't forget to come here and join us for Kicking It Old School. You guys, any last comments?
Game on.
Yeah. Ditto.
Thanks, guys. Everyone have a great weekend, and be sure to jump over to Super Game Room Dudes. I'll see you there in just a minute. Game on.
At the Tiny Arcade fan page. Remember, don't admire people too much. They'll disappoint you.
Sit, Blue Blue, sit. Good dog.